Real quick, before we start this podcast episode, I just want to say thank you for tuning into the Marc Colcer podcast. I know you've got a million things that you could be doing right now, and the fact that you're taking time out of your day to watch this podcast episode truly means the world to me, and I just want to say thank you for that. If you'd like to continue to support the podcast, right below this video, if you could hit the subscribe button, and then, hey, if you got some more time and you want to hit the download button, the comment button, the like button, the share button, any of those buttons, it's greatly, greatly appreciated. It helps for other people to find out about the podcast, and it helps for you to be notified about future episodes. So if you guys could take a quick second, hit the subscribe button, I would really appreciate that. Outside of that, this episode and every other episode is brought to you guys by Roast Umber Coffee. As some of you guys know, I co-founded Roast Umber Coffee, and we have the greatest farmers in Guatemala and Honduras and the greatest roaster in Grand Rapids, Michigan, all to bring you guys the greatest cup of coffee possible. So if you'd like to try it out, go to our website, use the coupon code MARC30, and you're going to get 30% off your coffee. Now on to the episode. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Welcome to the Marc Colcer Podcast. All right, so we took like a 5-minute break. We're back at it. This is part 2 of the Catalina Whales. I don't know what we're calling this, but the Catalina Whales podcast series. So you guys just kind of heard, I guess, what you've learned in the last year. Now we're going to get to talk about what you guys have coming up and what they should be bullish on for the future and everything like that. And so at the same time that this podcast is dropping, there's a article right now, and I want you to be able to announce that and kind of talk about what people, they may have already read it by the time they're listening to this. But I want you to, I guess, explain what people are finding out about today and what's going on.
Yeah, totally. So I'm really excited. It's something that's been in the works from when we kind of came up with the idea for the whales. It's been something that we dreamed of and that we envisioned. So we're really excited for it to finally become a reality. So essentially, Wagme Beach and the Catalina Whales have partnered with Universal Music Group, specifically with the Def Jam Recordings label, which is a record label that like I'm really fond of. That's had a really an important place in culture. So we're super humbled and excited to announce a partnership between Def Jam and the Catalina Whales to create a first of its kind digital avatar group, which we're calling the Whales.
There we go. We go. And so that news dropped today, right?
That news dropped today, hot off the press, baby.
There we go. Yeah. Okay, so tell me. So it's called the Whales, and this is explain it. So if I'm sitting there and I'm like, what the hell are the whales? I'm guessing what you mean by that is that you guys are essentially taking different whale characters. They're becoming this like digital avatar group called the Whales. And then who is voicing these voices? Are those voices changing? Tell me, what should I expect from there?
Yeah, totally. So essentially what you would expect is like, think of maybe like a DJ producer group, right? Think of like a DJ Snake or the Swedish House Mafia or Diplo or like Marshmello or somebody else, right? And I think the reason that that's like kind of a good example is that they can make different types of music with different type of vocalists, right? So essentially how the music is going to be created is we're going to work with a kind of an all-star cast of songwriters and music producers to create the music. And then each record is going to have a different featured artist on it. So, in the same way that you have a record that's like Diplo featuring Sia or whatever, right? You're going to have the Whales featuring various different vocal records. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to create these hit records. We're going to create a group. We're going to take it to market like we would take any other musical group to market. So we'll take it to Spotify, Apple Music. We'll shoot music videos. We'll exploit the content on TikTok and on YouTube and wherever else. And then I think what's really exciting is the community's relationship with this project, and I think that's where the innovation comes in. I think that's where we're doing something that's unique from what I've seen elsewhere. And so essentially how it works is we have a handful of roles. So we have the main roles in the group, right? Then we have the various featured acts. Then we have a manager and an agent. And then we got a handful of, we're probably going to come up with a better name for this, but we're calling groupies now, right? And so which are like the super fans, right? And so each one of these roles are going to be like auditioned from the whale community through a gamified like kind of experience. How that experience is going to work is it's going to work with, we're going to be releasing trait packs. You're going to be able to essentially build your character. And within these trait packs, there's going to be certain elements that represent a certain role, right? So there's going to be a super rare amount of these. So let's say there's 9 of these one-of-one attributes that you get. And if you get one of those 9, then you essentially have like a 1 in 3 chance of being one of these 3 main characters in the role. And then if you're one of the 9 people that have that, then you go through this audition process, which will be releasing details on like how to create a character and to build a character in a way to optimize for your best chances of winning this role. But essentially, if you win the role, it's materially the same as if you were in the group. You're like an owner of the group now. Like, you're a member of this NFT now represents a member of this group. And essentially, what'll happen is the NFTs that are actually selected to be in the group, the whales that are selected to be in the group, will go through a transformative process. You can almost think of like a hologram Pokemon card where it gets locked as something special. It morphs, and that now represents a stake in this group. And so, what does a stake in this group mean? It means there'll be a licensing fee for licensing your IP. It means when the group makes money, whether that's through streaming of the master recording, streaming of the publishing, endorsement deals, touring, any way that a real artist would make money, now a portion of that's going to go back to these holders. And there's going to be all different degrees of how the license back works and how you could participate, starting with the member of the group, right? And then there's the featured artists that get a big chunk, but only on the songs that they're on. Then you have the manager and the agent, just like in the real world, that take a little piece of everything. And then you have like the super fans or the groupies, which there's more of them, but they still have they still have a role. They're still used. You could just think of it like you're the video whale, you're the video girl, right? Those are the characters that are going to be in the music video, and they're going to realize some value through that, but on the same level of celebrity or the same type of financial licensing deal as like a main character would achieve. So that's essentially like in a nutshell what we're doing. And I think that really we want to use this to kind of incubate this as potentially like a new model for how gamified entertainment properties can be created. So I think this is something that you can duplicate in music. I think this is something you could duplicate in television and film. And we're excited.
Oh, good.
We're excited to we're excited to experiment with this as a new model, and hopefully prove that there's ways to build creative properties in a manner that's that's more collaborative with the community, and essentially kind of remove some of the barriers between creator and community, right? Instead of creating instead of creating things where it's it's a consumption process, creating a two-way relationship. And I think that there's lots of ways that could be taken, but it's one of the things that's that we're really excited about within Web3 is being able to sort of reimagine the relationship between the supporters of creative properties and the teams and people that are creating them.
So let me make sure I'm understanding this right. So if I see a song on Spotify, right, will it be let's say you guys end up with a collaboration down the road with, let's use Diplo as an example. Will it say the Whales featuring Diplo? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll have featured artists, and there'll be all different types of featured artists. And maybe those featured artists are Diplo, like another producer, or maybe it's a singer, right? Or maybe it's a rapper, whatever else. So it's the Whales is always going to be the main group, and then it'll be featuring XYZ.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then so from there, if let's say somebody you end up, your whale becomes the main character, right?
Yeah.
If they want to then sell that whale, does the person who buys it now has all the same rights and everything like that, so it's transferable from one person to another?
Yes, exactly. And there will be in order to receive the revenue, there is a KYC process.
Yeah, I would assume.
They'll essentially have to transfer the license to another person. The person who receives it can decide if they want to do that, but if they want to access the future revenue, then they would go on to our portal, they would register, and they would essentially transfer the license into their name. But yes, essentially how it works is holding this NFT, all the rights transfer with ownership of the NFT.
Okay. Yeah. And then how soon after all, because obviously this news is coming out today, how soon can we actually expect music?
Well, one thing that I've learned
realistically, yeah.
Hey, so one thing that I've learned is not to give dates. You know, I think that was that was one of our big learning experiences from last year. So I'm not going to give a date. What I will say is we're in the studio now. We're making records. I actually have one record that I'm really excited about, which we're going to start teasing really soon. It's not done. We're still working on getting on the features on it, but I'm really excited about like the top line, the hook, the melody, what it sounds like. I feel like it feels like it's something big. It is early days. It's going to take time. I think one thing that I do want to say about all this stuff is hopefully by doing this deal and announcing this group, we're able to reestablish some trust and let people know that like when we say that we're going to do things, that we're really serious about doing them. We're serious about doing big things. We're serious about doing innovative things. And if we say we're going to do some shit, we're going to damn near try our best to do it. That being said, I think, you know, the hard thing about hard things is it can take time. And it doesn't, and especially when working in creating like meaningful entertainment properties, it doesn't work at Web3 time. And so what I'm hoping is that we continue to do things to build trust, continue to do things to let people know that we're in this long term and we're not fucking around. That being said, I don't want to make any promises. I'm not going to say like, yo, in 2 weeks we're coming out with the hit record. Because what I will say is we're going to start consistently putting out music when the time's right and we have the music right. I will say, you know, making hit records, it's an art, not a science. There's a little bit of a science to it. And like, you know, there's things that improve your chances, but it takes time. It takes trial and error. We're going to work. What I will say that we're going to do though, is we're going to treat this like we've treated like any of like our priority clients on the management side. And we're going to go all the way in. We're going to go all the way in until, you know, we have hit records on Spotify and Apple Music and hopefully the radio.
So, okay. So then more questions from there. Mm-hmm. So then if somebody, let's say you're somebody who doesn't get one of the main roles in this and therefore you're not receiving revenue, for those people, how do you keep those people from saying, okay, well then I'm out, right? Like if I'm not receiving this revenue, I don't see how this is going to benefit me. So what would your response to that be?
Yeah. So, I mean, for one, I think what we're doing by like, I think that, you know, having a role in the group, to me, that's almost an add-on. Really, what is this about, right? What this is about is creating a brand and using channels that have never been used before to build an authentic fan base for a brand, which essentially like drives interest, which drives buy pressure, which takes all these people that have never bought like a digital collectible before and introduces them into our ecosystem. So I think that like winning a role and being in the group is a really meaningful, really, really exciting thing. I think that that doesn't mean that it's like, oh, that was the game. If you didn't do it, you lost. It's still what we're about is creating a community that people want to be a part of and creating a brand that permeates mainstream culture. And in the same way, and I think that there's like, you know, there's many examples of like, you know, how the utility continues to expand as you create a group that people actually care about as a group. But what I think is like a really important, like, just concept, and I think which is really like, you know, something that I like a barometer that I like test things about when I'm trying to determine if this is something that we want to do or not do is like, I think that for these communities and brands that we're building to be successful long term, you have to create incentives and value outside of money, right? And I think that if you look at like the existing world, right, and you look at like the kind of like where do we see examples of like real buy-in? Where do we see example? You know, and I think one of the big places we do is in artists that you love, that you're willing to spend money on, right? And those often aren't two-way relationships. I think we'd like to create a two-way relationship where a lot more value is going back to the holder. But I think if we look at the real world, right, it's like art and music and sports, and creating like unique experiences around these things. And so I think that like I think that's what's really important to kind of clarify is well, all this audition stuff and getting in the group is really interesting. I think really where the real value comes from is creating like a globally recognized brand with music that people love for the sake of loving it.
Yeah, and I would say this too. I recommend, after having the conversation that we've had already today, I recommend that as you guys start announcing this news, have a lot more than normal Q&As with your community to make sure you're addressing any of the concerns that they have. Because I think that's always going to be the number one concern. Anytime there's something where certain members of the community are elevated to certain levels, there's always going to be the feeling of like, well, are we being left out, right? And I believe fundamentally in the IP play, to me, is like one of the most interesting things. Like if anybody hasn't listened to my podcast episode with Luca Netz from Pudgy Penguins, we talked a ton about IP. He has views that I strongly believe in. I think everybody should watch that episode. I think every founder should watch that episode. But with that, I believe strongly that just because certain members of a community get elevated, that doesn't mean that the others don't. Yeah. The whole goal of this would be, in my view of IP plays, is that the goal is then to convert those people. If somebody goes on to Spotify New Music Friday and they see the Whales featuring whoever, Justin Bieber, and then the goal is to convert those people over to the fans of the Catalina Whales, right? And just for them to want to support the NFT. That's how we grow the amount of people who are interested in NFTs. Is all of a sudden you get people, because I remember when Marshmello dropped and people were like, wait, so like, who is this dude, right? And there was all this excitement about who he is and whatnot, and it caused people to really care more about like the brand and what it meant versus like who he is as a person, right? And I think people can, it's not that difficult to figure out who he actually is, but it became something bigger than who he is as a person, right? And I think this, in a lot of ways, can do very much the same thing of people going, well, hey, this is great music, and if it's great music, I'm going to support it, right? So that the reaction to the first song is going to be super, super important. I'm very excited to see what you guys roll with, but I also recommend that continue to involve the community and talk to them and involve the NFT space. Make it where we all can be proud of Catalina Whales, right? Because that's, to me, if you guys succeed with this, you guys will elevate the NFT space in a level that I think hasn't happened yet, because it will make us all really proud to see, I went onto Spotify and I saw the Whales. Like, that's sweet. Like that's something that we can all go, and whether you're a holder or not, go and tell your parents, like, hey, remember all this NFT shit that I'm involved in? You know that song you're listening to on the radio right now? That's the Whales. That's the Catalina Whales. That's an NFT project. Like, that to me would be super cool. I would love to see that. Like, I will be so excited. I'll be doing a cartwheel. I'll be calling you and everything, because that to me is, once again, how we grow this. That's how the IP plays pan out. That's how we make the NFT space more mainstream and more adopted and everything like that. So I'm very much rooting for that. I'm super excited. In terms of where do you think this, because I remember when I did the first episode with MRG, a lot of it was we talked about music. We also talked about television. Do you think then that the success of this is going to open the door to more of those things, of potentially a TV show down the road, a movie down the road, things like that? Like, where do you think this could potentially go if this becomes a huge success?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Well, I mean, I think we didn't really get into it on the past episode, but I think one of the big things that I learned is, when it comes to the IP stuff, we don't need to try and do everything at once, right? We don't need to try and have a TV show come out at the same time the music stuff comes out. And I think that music was an area where I think we had even more of an in than we had in TV. And so I think this is an opportunity to prove this concept. I think in the meantime, we are actively writing a script. We have a great team of writers that are developing a script. We are actively pitching. But I think one thing that we realized is let's do one thing and let's do it really, really well when it comes to the IP stuff. So we're laser focused on this music project and making it really successful. In the background, we have a team that's continuing to work on the on the television project. And yeah, I mean, I think that what are the opportunities if we could connect on this brand through music at a high level? I think that they're endless. So I think if you can create something that people identify with in a mainstream way, I think you could do television, you could do films, you could do merchandising, you could do live events. And these are all the things that I'm thinking about. And, you know, I think that like, you know, like I said, our kind of original like vision and North Star with Wagme Beach was to like experiment with new models for community incubated IB and to experiment with new models for like how to create a two-way relationship between the people who like love a creative property and the people who create it, right? And what we want to do is like we want to prove that these concepts are real. And like, we don't want to be the only one doing it. We want to prove this is real, and we want to start like kind of re-simulating this in different ways with other type of properties that people love. But I think it's really important that we do one that like rises from our community, as opposed to like this being like, okay, we're going to go get like Star Wars and we're going to do things like this. I want to see the first like major piece of like global IP that actually rises out for these communities. And it really hasn't happened yet, right? I think there's some examples of people that are doing really cool stuff. But yeah, I think that like, I think the opportunities for expanding the IP into all these different really interesting verticals are there. And I think B, like, just think about all the different, you know, types of real utility that you can add once you have people that really just love this thing, right? Like if you use Marshmallow from example, imagine if there was a community that had incubated that, and imagine if you had to have that to get into his shows. And imagine that it was like not only to get into these shows, that there was an experience that like money couldn't buy, right? And I think that like you're seeing some existing brands that are experimenting with that right now, and I'm really excited to see how they do. The Gary V thing with the omakase restaurant, what's it called? The Fly.
I can't remember. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about.
Fly fishing or fly something.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Which is really interesting. It's like a Soho house, but it's like a kind of Japanese omakase Soho house that you could pay to get in. That you have to have this to get into, and you could even lease out your NFT to other people, and it's like the only way to get into this club. I think that's really interesting. I think I actually just minted today was the
Fly Fish Club. You were right.
Fly Fish Club, yeah. I think they just did their initial mint today was the Rolling Loud thing, where you essentially you're familiar with the Rolling Loud concerts.
Yep.
Yeah, where you essentially buy this NFT and it gives you access. It's like lifetime VIP pass to all their concerts. So I think that like we're starting to see people experiment with real utility, like shit people actually care about. But I think that like the caveat to that, right, is real utility is only possible when you create brands that people have emotional connection with, and you create experiences that people care about, right? Like people want to go into the Soho house because they want to get into the Soho house. You know, you have to be able to create those unique experiences, and you have to create these brands that have like an emotional connection with people. And I think that's why it's really important to us to nail like, you know, kind of music, create songs that people care about, because if you can create the emotional connection, then you can create like the foundation to create unique experiences that people want to be a part of. Because I think the irony is if you can create a club that people want to buy to be a member of your club, right? Even if they're never going to get the money back, right? So if you create an NFT that I could buy this, and I'm going to get so much value off of being in this exclusive membership club and the experiences and the value that comes along with it, that I don't even care if this thing's worth nothing at the end of the year. The irony is that's the NFT that's going to be worth the most at the end of the year, because you're going to be able to sell it to the next guy that wants it, and everybody's going to be in it, want to be in it, and not want to be in it, and you're going to have demand that comes from something else besides artificial hype. And I think to really get to that point, you have to start thinking about creating actual meaningful experiences outside of like price go up. You know?
Yeah.
Which is the irony, which is that actually what makes the price go up.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It makes sense. So, okay, so what happens if the first songs that you guys, so, you know, my background, so I managed music artists when I first moved to LA, and that's where I was like, that's what my future's going to look like. That's not what it panned out to be. Yeah. But I knew at that time that if you got your song on New Music Friday on Spotify, and if people don't know, that's when most new music comes out, is Fridays. And so therefore, if you know, the number one playlist that everybody's always trying to get on is New Music Friday, right?
Yeah.
Do you believe that, and I won't hold you to a guarantee, because we've learned our lesson on how guarantees go, but do you believe that you guys will most likely, with your connections and whatnot, be able to get the music on New Music Friday right off rip? And or do you believe that like it might be something where you guys have to kind of prove that people want to hear this music first? Or do you think the featured artists will be big enough that you guys are going to be able to get the song in front of that many people right off rip? And the reason why I ask that is because I think if the first song that you guys put out gets 10,000 views versus 1 million views, there's going to be a completely different reception, right?
Yeah.
If you get it on New Music Friday, it might hit that million pretty quick, right? Yeah. So curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so nothing is guaranteed. I think that we're very, very well positioned. I work full time at Wagme Beach, but I still have 2 partners that are like that manage an independent label and distribution company, and we're on New Music Friday all the time. We're getting playlist covers like on a weekly basis, and we have like a really, really close relationship with Apple Music and with Spotify. I think there's a few factors there. I think that it's really important to have some big featured artists, right, to get us in the door before the Whales are known. I think the Whales on like a solo track is just the Whales and nobody knows about it, and it's a cartoon whale on the cover.
Would
Probably
be difficult.
not, even with our relationships.
Yeah.
It would have to be a really, really good record. I think that with the right features on it, it's totally doable, and yeah, we're gonna make it happen. Now, I will say, it's still not a guarantee once you get on New Music Friday. The thing is with Spotify, and the thing is with all music nowadays, even more than like a few years ago, is your music has to connect. You could have connections get you the opportunity to connect. Connecting, you can't fake. So music has to be good. It has to react. It has to work in the algorithm. Or you could be on New Music Friday and you're not getting any playlists after that. So I think that I'm absolutely confident that we'll be given the opportunities. I'm absolutely confident that we have us on our own, have plenty of leverage. Us along with the Def Jam Universal team, it's like we're totally fine at playlists. Your music has to connect. And again, that's art, not science. So we're going to use like our experience in working in music for the last 15 years to make some real bangers. And, it might not be the first one that hits, but we're going to keep on trying until one hits.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's super exciting. I am very excited to see how this plays out. I really do believe IP plays are one of the most important things because I fundamentally believe bringing more people into the space is one of the hardest challenges that we face. And it's one of those things that's a question that's not easily answered when you talk about, hey, what's going to bring 1 million people into the NFT space? I think the biggest thing is going to be something that is so cool in Web 2 that people have to come into Web 3, right? Yeah. And I think if you go into New Music Friday and you see a song that is featuring a major artist that you guys know of, and then you see the Whales and you're like, what is that? And then you guys are able to capitalize that and have the content ready to go. Maybe there's a website that's like, whatisthewhales.com, right? And like all of that does is explains Catalina Whales and like what you guys have been doing with WAGMI Beach and all of that. I think that could be a really cool way to take those people and convert those people into fans of Catalina Whales, and then just once again, the NFT space in general. And so I think you guys are in a really unique position. Like you guys are, and it opens up so many more doors. Like I could see TV shows, but I could also see whale plushies and like having the whale toys become a big thing. And there's so many different ways that this could go. And I think that's why IP plays are a very interesting way, because it's the easiest way to bring in way more people from the outside if you are able to do it right. And a lot of it means you have to have the connections necessary to do that. You guys from day one have had the connections in music. Now it's exciting to see, talk is cheap, right? So what happens from here, right? Yeah, and that's the part that I get excited about, is that I think if people are, wondering, hey, should I have faith in Wagme Beach? Should I have faith in Catalina Whales? Should I have faith in Carlo and everybody else that's behind Catalina Whales? This is your opportunity to prove to those people that you guys know what you're doing. One of the questions I had for you is, when you guys are making songs for this, one of my gripes is that when I listen to somebody who's like an NFT music artist, a lot of times the songs to me are super corny. Yeah. I do not ever want to hear somebody be like, and I minted this. Like, that is so cringe to me. And I'm like, God, I don't want to hear floor price in a song. So tell me that, promise me this. Promise me the music that you guys are making is just normal, great music and isn't like you guys shoving Web3 down people's throats. Am I right on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really, really important. I think that for us, what the Whales is about is instead more of even the Whales being about Web3. It's about creating a brand, that's about like an aspirational lifestyle. It's about what it means to be a whale. And that's something that spawned from Web3 and is really meaningful in Web3. But it's about being larger than life. It's about working hard. It's about partying hard. It's about living life to the fullest. It's about like not living by other people's standards and setting your own standards. And that's really what this brand's about. It's aspirational, it's funny, it's comedic, but it's also about its business. And so I think in the music that we want to create big, aspirational, contemporary, popular music. I say pop and not saying it's just going to be pop music. Some of the records might be dancier records. Some of the records might be more hip hop type records. It could really go any direction. But when I say pop, I mean popular. I mean big hooks. I mean aspirational hooks. I mean music that everybody could sing along to. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's super, super important. I think that in a dream world, for me, the Web3 stuff, it happens like in the background, so you almost don't know it's happening, right? And I think that like this might be a good natural segue to talking about some of the stuff that we want to do next with Wagme Beach. But I think for us, the world that I envision where we win is you learn about this band, you love this band, you're like, this is dope, I want to be a part of this. You go to some web experience and you're like, oh wait, there's like a club, like there's like this really exclusive club that I could be a part of, and I get to buy this thing. And you could do it in a way that you don't like have to store your private keys. You can if you want to. You don't have to learn all this crypto stuff. That there's like a delightful user experience that like anybody can understand, like buying something on Amazon. And you could become part of this club. You could start to access the community. You could feel the energy of the community and all the things that like, you know, I used to think NFTs were stupid. Even when I was in crypto, I like initially was like, what is this shit? This is bullshit. And like, But it grew on me, and I think that there's really something special in like the idea of collaborating with a group of people that you don't know to accomplish something together, right? And I really think that if you could remove all the barriers and the stigmas and this is crypto and this is that, and just be like, hey, we're creating something dope. Buy into it. Become part of this community. Let's do it together. And when it wins, we all win. That's like transformative. That's like the reason I'm doing this shit. And I think that's the reason that like a lot of our peers are doing this shit, is because that's like a game changing. And if we could remove all the stuff that doesn't matter, like, you know, I look at like what we're trying to create with like, you know, with kind of decentralized community incubated IP and like crypto is like, they're almost different things, right? Like payment channels for crypto and what we're doing here are like different. Like we could bring these external users in, create these delightful experiences, and they don't have to buy in to the culture of what crypto is about. All they have to do is buy into like the culture of this community that they want to be a part of. And I think once we really start to build some real use cases for that, I think that's when like everything that we're working towards becomes explosive.
Yeah, no, and I think that makes sense. I think it's allowing people to gradually ease their way into Web3, and I think a lot of times we force it on people, and it's so much coming at them all at once. They got to understand all these different terms. They got to understand this. They got to understand that, and it becomes overwhelming to people when they have a lot of other shit going on in their real life, right? Yeah. It's not like people can just be like, I'm going to put all of my energy into learning about Web3, right? Yeah. So it's something where, and over time, people do get more interested. They do put more time into it. But when you're first getting your feet wet, it's one of the most overwhelming things when people are having to explain to you what a rug pull is and why we spell when without an H and like all these different things, right? So yeah, no, I love the approach that you guys are taking with it. So, you know, the way I want to wrap this up is I want you to talk about the kind of the future of Wagme Beach. As people are hearing this, they're reading the news today. They also know there's going to be a time period where there's you know, music is not something that happens overnight. It's a long process. That's not me just covering for you too. That's also the reality of, I know how the music industry works. It's a slow process, but when it hits, and it's exciting. And so, but I want you to talk about, you know, for everybody who's sitting here wondering what else can they expect with Wagme Beach, you know, what should people expect? What should they be bullish on and all of that?
Yeah, totally. Well, I think, you know, from the beginning, our vision with Wagme Beach, which hasn't changed, was we wanted to be a catalyst to allow premier communities and premier IP to onboard into Web3 in a sustainable manner with a focus on like long-term brand growth, and to build like beneficial two-way relationships between the communities and these brands, right? And I think that we're uniquely positioned in that we're not like some entertainment dudes trying to figure out Web3. And we're not some Web3 dudes trying to figure out some like entertainment. We're actually like in it, living it, breathing it in both of these worlds. And I think for that reason, even though like we talked about in the last episode, I'm not claiming to be an expert. I've like fucked up more than most, but I do live and breathe it. I'm doing this shit every day. This is my life. And I think that so our North Star was to be the destination for this premier entertainment IP that wants to enter into Web3. And I think we initially approached that from the perspective of being like a film studio, right? Signing the IP, doing the partnership, building these things, and managing them internally. We realized that that's not a sustainable and that's not a scalable model. But the mission remains the same. And we've spent, the last 5-6 months thinking about how do we stay true to our original vision? How do we drive value back to whale holders? How do we create a flourishing business? How do we become the destination and provide a ton of value to our peers in the entertainment space that need a partner when they want to kind of explore this new world? And I think what we discovered is that we can provide strategy and technology for partners that are looking to enter this space, but we're not going to manage the communities. So essentially what we're doing is we're converting WAGMI into more of an agency type of model, where we can provide solutions. A lot of those solutions are like providing, what I would like to call sort of delightful user experiences, removing the barriers for like what we were talking about with the whales example, removing the barriers for how a non-crypto native user interacts with this ecosystem. I think there's all these great protocols and tools that exist in Solana and on many chains. But if you're like an entertainment IP that has this big, robust community of people who love you and want to be part of your club, and you want to like be competitive in Web3, I think that there's a huge technical lift. I think you have to build an engineering team. You have to really kind of understand the strategy. You have to figure out what works. And it usually doesn't work, which is why we've seen almost every entertainment play in Web3 turn out to be like a rug or a slow rug, even though when it's not the intention, when they're trying their best. And what I think is there's a need for essentially a user experience layer, right? Which takes all of like the dope technology and makes it all compatible and work together and focuses on bundling it into these unique and delightful user experiences. So that's kind of what we're doing on the technology side. And then I think that also ties into strategy, just like I said, we're not figuring we know it all. You might look at me and be like, why am I going to trust you guys? But I hope to build that trust over time. And I do think that we're dedicated to being like instrumental at that intersection and being a really important player at that intersection. And I think that, because we live it and breathe it, I think that we're well suited to be there. But long story short, so I think with WAGMI, mission remains the same: bring premier IP in, help them introduce them to our space, but do it with more of an agency model as opposed to like a co-owned IP model. Whereas we help to develop the strategy, we help to develop the technology, but then once they come in, the teams are required to have their own existing teams that are confident in their own vision and not dependent on us to manage their community long term, because we want to be 100% focused on the whales. And then I think through that, we're able to sort of layer another layer of value on what the whales get. It's like, one, we're creating this decentralized entertainment brand and everything that comes along with the whales itself, but we also have the WAGMI agency over here where we're continuing to drive revenue. We're continuing to bring in new collections, and whether it's like whatever the mechanism is, and the mechanism could continue to change over the time, that revenue, value, access to those collectibles, getting the collectibles for free, whatever it is, this whole world is funnels value, revenue, etc., back to the whales, the whale community, whale holders.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense. I think that's a great place to wrap this up. This is exciting. I think this is something where, and I'm not just saying that, I truly, I'm rooting for you guys. I want this badly to work out because I think this could be huge for the whole entire Solana space. I think it's far bigger than just Catalina Whales, and I hope other people, I hope people are rooting. I hope they watch this and they root for you guys, because this is something that you guys are trying, something that hasn't been done before. And there's other people that have really like talked about it, but nobody's really has been in the position to really carry something like this out. You guys are in that position. So I'm excited. I'm rooting for you guys. I want this to work out, and I think this has been awesome. I really appreciate both the conversations that we've had about, you know, kind of what you guys have learned in the last year and how you guys are kind of taking that and changing the way that you're approaching things moving forward. And so with that, man, I'm excited. I'm excited for you guys, and I'm excited for the next podcast episode where we can come back and talk about what you've learned from this experience, what's gone right, what's gone wrong, and what you've learned from that. Because with life, that's how it goes. You know, we do things, we try things, some things work, some things don't, but we learn from it all. And as long as we keep learning, we'll keep growing, we'll keep advancing, and we'll keep making this space as awesome as we know it can be. So I've appreciated our conversations. This has been fun. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to all of this too. But I want to give you an opportunity. If there's anything last you want to say to everybody, and then also if you can drop your socials along with that. But yeah, I just want to say I appreciate you taking the time today. I know this has been a long podcast episode. I know my leg is hurting from sitting this long, so I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, man. Yes, it's been awesome. Well, I just want to say first, yeah, thanks for having me. I've been following what you're doing. I think that what you're doing for the space is really, really valuable. So I appreciate that I could come here. Honestly, it's been like a pretty transformative thing for me to come here and talk this all the way through. So I'm happy to be able to talk with you. I think that the questions that you've asked are really thoughtful. I'm excited to be able to share all this stuff with the community. And yeah, man, I think that I think it's super important that founders and projects have an opportunity to be humble and to be honest and to talk about what works and what doesn't. And yeah, so I really appreciate you having me here. I'm excited for what comes next. I'm excited for our whole ecosystem. And yeah, I want to say that, like, you know, whether you're a whales holder, whether you're someone who's interested in what we're building, whether you're someone who was into us before and you kind of lost faith, we're here. We're excited to talk with you. We're excited to have two-way conversations and learn how to get better over time. And I think to your point earlier, man, I'm excited about what we're doing, but I'm also really excited about this ecosystem as a whole. And so, you know, I just want to say to everybody that's out there, like, whether you're building in Solana, you're building in ETH, whatever it is, if you're out there in the ecosystem and you're doing stuff and we can be of value to you, my DMs are open. Hit me up. I want to win myself, and I plan to win myself. I plan to make sure that all Catalina Whales win, but I also want to be here to be a resource to everybody out there in the ecosystem. So yeah, so hit me up. Don't be shy. I like to talk. And on that note, socials, Carlo Fox XYZ, and yeah, thanks again for having me. Pow pow, baby.
There we go. Thank you guys for tuning in, and looking forward to the future of the Whales. Looking forward to seeing you guys on the cover of New Music Friday. At some point, we'll celebrate that day. But appreciate everybody tuning in again, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Pow pow, baby. Let's go.
Pow pow. See you guys.